Yeah, the changes Peter Jackson made, all of them are creatively justifiable. All of them. And all of them made the movie stronger and basically created masterpieces of cinema. But the conceit we often hear in culture war arguments now
I get you.
is that Peter Jackson's movies honored the lore and the spirit of Tolkien, and Rings of Power doesn't. And that's just a bullshit argument.
No,
they both make huge changes to the lore and to the personalities of the characters on the page. So
anyway, that was pretty cool intro, right?
Okay, so the beginning of Rings of Power this week, I didn't even realize the credits hadn't played because I was so engrossed in that scene. I'm like, this Fox.
Yeah.
Wait, that's a cold open? Shit.
That's what
that was.
That stands head and shoulders as with any of some of the most epic moments in the fucking Jackson trilogy.
Oh yeah. That 2-minute clip is better than the entirety of the Hobbit trilogy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't make dwarves look like stupid dipshits.
Exactly. That image of the moment when his axe breaks the Balrog's sword will live rent-free in my head forever.
Yeah.
Dude. Like, and that's I didn't honestly think about it. I wasn't considering, is he gonna be redeemed, or like is he just gonna die like disgraced or something? But like I didn't know I fucking needed it until it happened. Like, fuck yes. Redemption, bitch.
He died a king is what he died. Yeah.
I think one of the best services this show has done for Tolkien fandom is treat dwarves seriously and respectfully.
No shit.
Because the movies turned them into comic relief.
Yeah.
Which was fine. It works great in the Jackson movies.
Well, it worked great for the first couple times, but it wears out its welcome.
Yeah, and it has led to the cultural, downstream of those movies, cultural portrayals of dwarves in other things like actual play Dungeons and Dragons shows, for instance, has made every dwarf I have ever seen into comic relief, into a drunken Scottish person.
Yeah.
Including at my own tables when I'm running games in the privacy of my home or whatever. Everyone who plays a dwarf plays Gimli.
I don't know the names of the actors that play these guys. I've read something about them at one point, but like they're excellent. They're like just the of course we got one. We're one less now, but one fewer.
Yeah.
But man, they've been like kind of the rock of the show the entire time.
The dwarves have been consistently the best part of this show, and I don't think that's controversial. Like, I think even people who don't like the show that much were like, the dwarves were the best part of the show.
Yeah, I think I've seen quite a bit of that as well.
And we also got to give a shout out to Tom Bombadil's Hedgehog Teapot while we're at it.
Actually, let's go ahead and say now that there was a point when this was true, but I think that's been ruined for us all at this point.
I personally feel that after Sean Connery's death, we should have just retired the accent in Hollywood.
Well, he's got much more of a lisp than other Scottish people.
That's true. But I still feel like if there was a time to retire it, that was the right time.
I don't know if I agree with that. There's tons of really good Scottish actors.
True. But the thing is with a lot of Scottish actors is they play the best American characters.
They do. And they play some of the best Doctor Who's as well. And they rarely get to use their natural accent.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I don't like to say that opinions can be wrong, but this one kind of is. Because it's literally not a remake. I don't know how it can feel like a remake. It literally takes place different.
I mean, you're allowed to not be a fan of the books. That's fine, but it's not a remake because it's a different story.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. A lot of people don't grasp this. The TV show is a prequel to the books, not to the Jackson movies.
It's bizarre to me to admit that you don't watch something. You just see little pieces of it here and there and go, I don't know, this feels like this very specific type of thing that I don't possibly have the fucking context for, but it feels like that. And here's my opinion. You're welcome.
Especially because you're getting just a clip of it, right? And people who clip these things online often do so to elicit a specific reaction. And we're going to talk about that later in the show. With something that doesn't have to do with Lord of the Rings. But if you can't, like, if you watch the first episode and you're just like, this isn't for me,
which might happen.
I get you. I'm just like, yeah, that first episode's a drag, and if you don't want to put the rest of the time in, more power to you. Like, I have friends who are like, Morgan, you gotta fucking read One Piece, and I'm like, I tried. It's so boring. I don't like it. When does it get good? Like, when does it get good? It's like, oh, it's like 30 volumes of manga, and I'm like, 30 books. Nah, I'm good. I'm good.
I will say, though, I do think there is some valid criticism. I've made it myself of the TV show Rings of Power, absolutely. In that it aesthetically it leans into the Jackson aesthetic a little too much, and I think they're doing that in an attempt to lure in fans of the Jackson movies, like the design of the.
Be some even though it's not a direct, it makes sense for it to be like aesthetically connected.
Yeah. I agree, but I would like to see it over time develop its own aesthetic identity.
That's fair.
Rather than like the design of the Balrog in this show, as awesome as it is, comes directly from the Peter Jackson movies. Yeah. There are other interpretations that could be made based on the description of the books.
Barely though, because I was looking around at different images today, and like some of the art from decades ago. You kind of just nail it just by even getting close to it. It's this kind of perfect design that like you can tweak little thing here and there, and you're still going to see the same fucking Balrog pretty much.
I'm sure they've made a bunch of little tweaks that the average viewer won't notice, but is enough to get them out of legal trouble. Either that, or they have licensed it from WB.
Right. One thing I did notice with this one is it is a lot more smoky. Yeah. There's more smoke coming off of it.
But that would make sense narratively too. Like in the he's just now waking up, so like there's still. I don't know. The fires are still not raging quite as much.
But the Balrog in the book does have like smoky wings, like shadowy, misty, smoky wings. So
right.
So here's the deal with I've been looking at this, and I'm gonna be the lore expert for a minute. Bob.
Everybody,
I'm gonna go. Bye.
So I saw that some people were mentioning that this is, how can the Balrog be awake already? This is, the second age, and it's the third age whenever it first appears. And it's like, well, and I said before, whenever that first came up, that I was like, that doesn't mean just because the record that exists currently says this is whenever it was first seen or whatever, it doesn't mean that there weren't people that saw it prior to that, and for whatever reason, those records didn't, get maintained. For example, in this very episode, different records were not maintained, to say the least.
We see records destroyed.
Yeah, literal histories were fucking wiped out. And so I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't this episode, it was a previous episode, right?
No, it was this episode.
Okay. It all ran together so beautifully. But yeah, and like at the same time too, it's so what is it? It's known that during the sixth is the one that kind of like goes after him, the Balrog eventually.
Yeah, around the fourth. And the one that just died was the third. Right.
And so I mean, that's generally what's referred to, I believe, as like being whenever, okay, we got to deal with this Balrog. And then they couldn't, they basically got wiped, his whole fucking crew got wiped out. And they just said, all right, we're just going to leave this mountain now.
We're going to lock the door and throw away the password and bye.
Yep. Hopefully one day, there's no like some wizard and some stupid hobbits don't, come in here and fuck around and wake anything up. But yeah. So, but this is I don't see how this is. It's not really a retcon. It's just more like an additional piece of history that wasn't. No,
it's a change from the lore that doesn't matter narratively. It has no impact.
I think it does though, because I think it makes it
has no impact on the story that Tolkien wrote.
Sure. Yeah.
To include an earlier appearance of the Balrog, because the timing of the Balrog's awakening doesn't really matter to the flow of history as it's depicted.
I'd say that him having an impact on Durin's this much earlier in the timeline makes Durin's Bane more fucking powerful of a name.
Right.
It's been the next multiple. The other thing I want to point out. Go ahead, Bob.
Oh, the showrunners have discussed this, and they've said that what they wanted to do is explore with the dwarves, how a civilization falls.
Right.
And the Balrog they said the Balrog is a process, it's not an event. And
that's cool.
because when you look back in history retrospectively, it seems like every civilization just fell one day.
But it's not.
But in fact, it's a long decline always.
So the Balrog could be, let's say, climate change. or you know, I don't know, drilling for oil or whatever. Like,
I mean, in this case, like the drilling for oil thing is they dug too deep, right? That's the whole.
Right.
Another thing we have to keep in mind with this story is that we're in the middle of it. So there's an entire, like we talk about at the end of the episode with during the fourth, who is now going to be in a succession crisis. There is probably, it's not unreasonable to think, oh well, there is going to be a cover-up.
Yeah.
Because what the fuck happened to this guy? You know, and like everyone is not in like Dwarven civilization is not in a good place right now. So it could just be like no one believes it was the Balrog. People are gonna label, you know, he died in an accident because he was a fool, or his son killed him, or whatever.
Well, I mean, he already wiped out several of his own people, just like fucking mowed them down, because they tried to get in his way. So like, there's gonna be already stories going around that he's lost his shit.
Right.
The only person that knows that he kind of regained his shit is the younger Durin now, and I guess Disa was there too.
So,
and climate change is actually the example that the showrunners gave. They did not say that that Tolkien intended the Balrog as an analogy or an allegory for climate change.
Yeah,
they said climate change is an example of what that we can think of in our modern context, of how a looming problem that is an existential threat to civilization gets ignored.
We created it, and yet we still just refuse to actually address it in the way that needs to be addressed. We kind of just keep on, I see it.
Yeah, and the Balrog in the show is going to be like that. It's going to be an existential threat to Khazad-dûm that leadership knows about, but they just ignore it for short-term political reasons. And it just gets worse and worse the more they ignore it.
Yeah.
I'm working on a second season review of Rings of Power, and got a lot to talk about.
I think my favorite comment from one of your channels when I was watching one of your videos, I saw you put up clips from when we were talking on this show, and someone tried to explain to me that when you, Bob, said the word queer, you meant like the transes and not like kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Why is that a bad thing?
I didn't see that comment.
Yeah. It's like, is that a bad thing?
But that was the tone of a lot of the comments, was like, wait, you're being friendly with a trans.
Hi.
Tolkien is rolling in his grave. And I would be like, what's the connection here? I don't get it.
I don't get it, yeah. Also, if true, if I have that much power, if Bob and I together and having a friendly conversation have the power to make a dead man spin in his grave, you are giving us too much power.
Well, trans necromancy is the most powerful magic.
That's true.
Because not only can you bring back the dead, you can change their gender.
No, we can help them express the gender they were in life.
Yes, and then archaeologists won't be able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why having trans people in Lord of the Rings is just fine, and I'm waiting for the show to do it.
Oh my god. Oh, if we get it. Oh god. That said, like, I legitimately think that like a trans masculine dwarf would be an interesting character to explore. Like, legitimately.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, if they actually did include dwarven women with beards?
Yes.
In Rings of Power?
Yes. Like, I know they gave.
Can you imagine the chud freak out over that?
Right. But like, one, like Daya has some like facial hair, like a little bit, but like not a ton. Like, and that's their nod to her having facial hair, which she does. But like, it would have been cool if she had a proper beard.
But if they'd gone with the joke in the Lord of the Rings, and contextually it's a joke when they say you can't tell the dwarven men from the women because of the beards.
Right.
But if they had gone with that and made dwarven women and dwarven men indistinguishable in Rings of Power, can you imagine?
Oh god, they do that.
Yeah. I mean,
if all the dwarves were, masculine and androgynous, that'd be fantastic. Like, they would have. Okay, they're gonna say that's against the lore. Like, no, that's the whole. They would be arguing that contextually it was just a joke, because their primary pole is transphobia, not lore accuracy. Not right. So, they don't actually. Yeah. Fun fact: these people who complain about how important the lore is whenever there's a person of color, or a queer person or a woman. They don't actually care about the lore. They just care about being a bigot. The lore is just busy work.
Yeah, it's a proxy for the Great Replacement theory, and all the other right wing.
It's an appeal to authority in the same way that like they'll know you were a man when they dig up your bones.
Yeah,
it's that same like I am appealing to the lore, because they treat all written sources as lore, right? Like they don't actually know it; they just pretend to.
Well, they know the parts
the same way every time.
Yeah, they memorize the parts that have been handed down to them.
Right.
By other people who have used motivated reasoning, right? Same way. It's the same way with religious, fundamentalism, which is why I referred on my channel to these people in the past. I used the phrase fandom mentalists because they treat Star Wars lore or Lord of the Rings lore or Star Trek lore or whatever as the same way that religious fundamentalists treat their scriptures.
Right.
Like the original vision, the original text is infallible. Any deviation from it is degeneracy. And only the literal meaning of the words on the page is what counts. There's no room for interpretation or
nobody told that to Marisha Lucas or Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And that's why Star Wars succeeded.
I apologize, guys, for the needing to be away.
Okay. We know what's up. It's all good, man. Ready to put on the rings?
Yeah, let's kiss the rings. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we were talking when last Dane was here and discussing Rings of Power. We had left off with the Dwarves.
The Dwarves.
The Balrog.
Yeah, I want to look at that scene and try and do it just a little bit at a time and just kind of scan through it just for the key moments because it's awesome and maybe we can avoid a copyright claim doing so.
I think that's called edging, though, Dane.
Yeah, we're gonna edge them. Because really, you should just watch it.
Yeah.
He had become quite a reactionary himself, and was just drill baby drill.
Pick baby pick.
It's pretty interesting to see how the ring had affected him. I don't think the ring affected him the way that Sauron would have wanted. I don't think it gave him as direct control as maybe he wanted.
No, I don't think so either.
But it sure as fuck corrupted him a bit.
Well, I think we get that. We see that in another episode where he goes to Durin to be like, I would like you to do this thing, and Durin's missing with that.
Yeah.
Come back when you have more money, and Sauron is like, wait a minute, hold on.
How dare you?
That is not how this is supposed to work at all. What the fuck?
You are wearing my ring, right? I mean, it's unrelated to this, but you're wearing it, right?
I like it, so I put a ring on it. Why won't you do what I said?
So, yeah, the whole thing, comes to a head, a fiery head, down there in the mines of Moria, as they reach basically fucking Mithril City. Just all of the Mithril that's the veins of Mithril going through the mountain. It's all right there.
I love how he pops through and he's like, look at all the Mithril, and eyes turn to fucking dollar signs, and then suddenly just the fire is coming up, and Durin the Fourth is like, Dad.
Well, yeah, that's
fucking problem.
Look how quickly, this is what's amazing about it, honestly. There's several things amazing about it, but the last thing that he says to his son before he notices the flames is he's still fully on board with let's fucking do this, dude. Let's fucking mine the shit out of this.
Hunting the way I do, you have to wear a ring, my son. It's not our mountain, Father. You taught me that.
So he's appealing to his what he taught him as a boy, as a little man. It's I'm imagining it's something about respecting the mountain, respecting the fact that this has got to be here for generations to come. Leaving strong legacy for your descendants and everything. You don't mind the shit out of it. You don't fucking drill so deep into it that you make it something bad and evil happens that kills everybody.
Yeah, and this ties into one of Tolkien's themes of the creation does not belong to us. We are the stewards of the world,
right,
and not its owners. Right, the earth or the world belongs to the gods or to God or whatever the force of divine providence is supposed to be in this show. So he's not explicitly saying that, but it ties into that deeper Tolkien theme of ecological spirituality.
And so keep in mind though, he just the younger Durin just said it's not ours, and his response is
with these rings it could be.
He's still fucking seeing that green.
Yeah.
Now seeing some orange. Yeah, like I don't know if there's anything that would have talked him out of it other than the Balrog existing. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like you got to think this thing's been here since it
the first age.
The first age when Morgoth was what fell or something like.
Yeah, since what the War of Wrath was the war against Morgoth. Yeah.
Thousands of years basically. I mean we can infer it's been here for thousands of years.
So it basically got banished to beneath the mountain somehow. Like was it just like the mountain was dropped on it, or what happened? I don't know. You know, did it crawl in there to hide because it was weak? Maybe.
I think it did. Yeah. I have to confess, I haven't studied the biography of the Balrog in Moria.
I'm not expecting you to know the answers to this. I'm kind of asking just like generally, like because I don't even need to know the answer. It's actually interesting to think about what fucking happened. I don't know.
Right.
I love that shit, but.
It's one of those things that doesn't need an answer, that it's there is a fucking problem.
And I mean, that's what's cool about it, is it's so epic and like clearly, beyond old that like not having an answer to it makes more sense than having an answer to it in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it makes it scary, right?
Right.
Yeah. And this is why lore, being a lore fundamentalist or a lore nerd is kind of missing the point, because narratively, for the purposes of this scene anyway, and for the purposes of the story of the fall of Khazad-dûm, it doesn't matter how old the Balrog is or what year it appeared there. What matters is that it's there, and the role that it plays in the story.
And it's actually, like we said at the beginning, it deepens the relationship between the line of Durin and the Balrog.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away; it only enhances.
Yep.
So what the fuck is? So like, do you think that they had any concept for what this is? You know what I mean? Like, do they have? Does they even know what they're seeing when they see it?
I don't think so. Like, Daya knows something is there, and it's a capital P problem.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have she doesn't know what it is.
Yeah. The way that she first encountered, that was a cool scene. Like chasing a little thing, and then this is a perfect little, spot for singing. Yeah, Balrog thinks so too.
Oh no.
Oh fucking.
This scene makes me want to get surround sound and rewatch it.
And and then that little thing there, that's definitely you remember this?
That is very much a remember. Yeah, that's the remember shot. And you knew it was coming, right? Like, I'm just like, oh, we're gonna get the whip now.
I mean, instantly you're like, oh, so he's dead just like Gandalf.
Right, we know.
No, not just like Gandalf.
Well, no, because Gandalf lives.
Right. Well, kind of.
Durin ain't coming back from this one.
Gandalf lives again.
Right.
He passes through.
Gandalf defeats the Balrog. Like, they fight for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And then he falls over dead afterwards.
Yeah.
But not really dead, because they're both Maiar. So
they're
he goes.
Both Maiar,
yeah.
About as dead as you can get in that case, I guess. So I wonder if they, if you ever, I don't know, it'd be cool to.
What happens to the Balrog?
We need to do updated lore, and how they did after Watchmen. We need to do that.
Oh, Dane, shut the fuck up.
And have the Balrog is now taking on a new form too.
No,
and
Dane, we are
Nope.
I'm canceling you.
I'll talk about it. We'll talk about it later.
No, I think we should do Doomsday Clock.
Oh God. And tie in the Lord of the Rings lore to what the Valiant
Balrog. The Balrog just continues, rewrote the Lord of the Rings universe at the end of Rings of Power so that it would become the Peter Jackson films.
Whoa, yeah, we got to get this multiverse situation handled so everybody knows exactly how this all lays out.
I know, there's too many Tolkien continuities floating around right now. We need
This is what we need to do to save the industry.
Yeah, we need a crisis on Infinite Middle Earths or something. To clear all this up, yeah.
Into the Balrog verse. No, Crisis on Infinite Middle Earths is amazing. I want to start making images about it now. Anyway, so yeah, you get this, and credit to him, Durin, who's been a bit of a poopy head lately. He pretty quickly realizes, oh, shit's not. This is different than what I thought it was. This is bad. This is very bad. And here's my son. He's in danger, and he makes a choice, man. Oh, let's get this first shot here. Holy shit.
Stop it.
I love,
Pause, because the music might get you copyright strike.
True.
Yeah. And it's a good point. This is a great shot to sort of point out the differences between the Peter Jackson version and this version. This one is just wreathed in smoke.
Yeah. Which is much closer to the description in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets that fire and shadow thing that, like, you know, they talk about in the books.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. And the way it moves, and part of that is just that, like, CGI has come a long way in a quarter century.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it looks bad in that movie. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad in the movies at all, but
It
this
really
looks way
does.
better.
I feel like it looked fucking incredible in the first movie.
Oh yeah,
So-
it looks amazing.
But it is scaled for a movie screen, and like for a TV screen or for a small screen, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they definitely put some resources into it. And that's one of the good things, I guess, about, like, you're making a show where you're definitely trying not to have a battle every episode,
Right.
because that kind of goes against the point as far as Christopher Tolkien's concerned. And so, but you do need to have some epic confrontations, and so you can reserve your budget a little bit for
Right.
things like this.
And because it's a show where you've planned for the long haul, you're in it to win it. You know you can save things in your budget for things like costumes and stuff because you don't need to start over every time. Your costumes are probably going to be reusable.
Yeah. Man, the Balrog, basically, he looks like a... I don't know. What I wanted to do at first when I was making a little edit for the end of the intro was just, like, play some metal music, you know?
It's
like
very metal.
So much... I don't know if anybody realizes, I'm sure, Bob, you do, how much of Led Zeppelin's early music was fucking just about Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. Now, I could be wrong, but I read somewhere, this may be just a rumor, but I read somewhere that Tolkien asked Led Zeppelin to make music for a Lord of the Rings adaptation at some point.
God, that'd be the coolest thing that ever happened if it did, but I don't know, I feel like it probably didn't.
Which
but,
would mean that Tolkien was a metalhead.
well, I mean, and so that in that way,
that really puts Christopher Lee's
that's what
role
I was about to say.
in the Peter Jackson movies, really carrying on the tradition.
Christopher Lee, who famously recorded an entire album of metal music.
When he was in his like 90s, right?
Yeah,
on his deathbed, basically, when he made that fucking album. It was
yeah.
Well, he the thing with him is that guy was badass his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is not a moment in his life that you can't read about and go, God, that guy's fucking cool.
So Christopher Lee was literally the inspiration for James Bond.
Yeah.
His friend Ian Fleming.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Lee was a spy in World War II. And his friend Ian Fleming
afterwards.
Yeah, his friend Ian Fleming based James Bond on Christopher Lee as a person and on some of the stories that Christopher Lee told him that he was allowed to talk about.
Yeah. And
there's a famous story from behind the scenes in Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson films, of the scene where Wormtongue stabs Sauron in the back, and Christopher Lee was delivering a performance based on his personal experience of stabbing people in the back and knowing what actually happens to a man when you stab him in the back. And Peter Jackson was wanting to get a more melodramatic performance out of him.
Right.
And Christopher Lee was like, I have stabbed people in the back. That is not
yeah, I remember that story.
Explains to him in detail what happens when you stab someone in the back and the noises they make.
Yeah. And so Peter Jackson was like, all right, badass.
I guess I can't argue with that, nor should I argue with that for my safeties.
Right, like that's part of it, right? Is the implied like, yeah, that's right.
Whatever you say, man. Whatever you say.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, definitely more smoke than flame in this guy. But I love this whole this not necessary sequence they did anyway. Just to give it more life and to show that maybe it's kind of youthful compared to what it becomes. Like, it's a little bit inexperienced as being a fucking demon that confronts people.
It's a CD boy who's just waking up.
And I love the line that he's about to deliver about I wasn't lifting my hand, it was just you getting stronger.
Because earlier, before this clip starts in the show, he is the younger Durin is trying to appeal to him, his childhood, his dad raising him and how strong he was. Because, his dad says when he first shows up and he's got an axe and he's like, are you strong enough to lift your axe against your father? And he's like, no, I've never been as strong as you. He's the strongest person I ever knew, and tells him about how when they used to arm wrestle and he would let him lift his arm up just a little bit and make him think he was going to win before he would slam his arm down. And, pretty good stuff. Yeah. And these motherfuckers calling it bad writing all over the place. Fuck
all of y'all.
I've seen... Oh, sorry. This part right here, I've seen some people mad about this.
Why?
Because they say he shouldn't have been able to take off the ring because it's a ring of power.
No.
Right?
That's not how that works.
And I'm like, right. That's not how that works.
There's characters that have taken off the one ring even.
Right. Like Bilbo or,
Frodo or Sam.
These are, these are, and look, I mean, there are characters that are just more powerful in terms of like resisting it, like the hobbits, than the dwarves obviously are, but it doesn't mean the dwarves are incapable of resisting.
And specifically, like, even with Sauron's corruption on the dwarven rings, it did not give him control of them. It just made them more greedy. And
also, the rings have a very base consciousness and a sense of self-preservation.
Yep.
So it would direct him to take it off of him so that it could be picked up by someone else.
That's the best argument for it right there.
And it is not as powerful as the One Ring. That's the whole point of the One Ring. So these rings should be easier to resist. They're still next to impossible to resist, but it's still possible.
Sauron or Anatar and Celebrimbor making these rings is not an exact science.
No.
They didn't know exactly how much influence, or he didn't know exactly how much influence of himself he was putting into these rings. He just knew that to some degree he would have some corruptive effect.
Right.
And I don't think he had as much as he wanted to.
Right.
At least with Durin. But yeah. Had enough to fucking essentially bring down the fucking this dwarven society in the long run. So
yep.
It's you. Just you getting stronger.
I mean, we got dwarves, we got axes, we got fire demons. Where is the metal music?
Where is the metal? Give me the metal.
I guess metal is just for the orcs, I guess.
Yeah, that sucks, because dwarves are metal as fuck. He breaks the fucking Balrog's sword.
And the fucking the goddamn just the aftershock of the clash just fucking brings the mountain down on top of it.
Right.
Which explains for the lore purists, this explains how the Balrog can be awakened in the Second Age and then go back to sleep.
Wait, no, but things only wake up once, right?
Right.
Don't things wake up just once?
Because a whole fucking mountain just collapsed on it. So of course the dwarves probably think it's dead now.
Well, and also, like, if I'm the Balrog, I'm like, okay, so, like, I took a nap. Clearly some shit has happened. And this fucking 3-foot-tall brick of meat broke my sword with an axe. That's not a Maiar. That's not even an elf. That's just some cube person.
He turned into jelly when I hit him.
Right.
And, like,
but
how
broke
do you
my
do this?
fucking sword.
Yeah, maybe I need to sleep a little bit longer. I'm not ready yet.
And like, maybe I need to come back with an army of orcs and let them, like, take some damage for me so I don't have that happen again.
Man, I gotta say, few cinema experiences are as harrowing in my memory as the first time seeing, just like with all of the orcs, kind of getting the fuck out of the way, and like whenever the Balrogs come in, just like that whole sequence in Khazad-dûm in the original, God damn it.
Yeah.
So fucking perfect. I
It
need to
is.
rewatch the trilogy.
I cannot argue any of that. I rewatch the trilogy at least once a year.
I used to watch it. So for a while, I worked for a newspaper, and I did not have off Thanksgiving, and that was the worst day of the year because that's when the Black Friday paper went out. So everyone was getting extra papers, and it was a whole fucking ordeal. The paper is 6 inches thick, and I would miss Thanksgiving dinner because of it. But then I would like wake up, make myself some dinner, and then watch all of Lord of the Rings. I just for 12 hours just do nothing but veg and watch that.
Yeah. I usually watch it around Christmas each year. It's a Christmas movie for me.
Because they came out around Christmas every year, didn't they?
Yeah, it came out around Christmas, and it has snow, and it has elves, and Gandalf is kind of a low-carb Santa. So
yeah, he is diet Odin. Yeah,
he's like a keto Santa or whatever. But
not in terms of power.
No, Santa is much more powerful.
Yeah, Santa's terrifying.
He is God's God.
He is the most powerful mutant in existence.
Well,
beyond Omega level.
Look, we're gonna need to do a fucking a season recap. I think just an episode of a season recap.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll have to rewatch the season, but yeah, we should do that.
I plan to rewatch the entire show from the beginning, and knowing what we now know. I mean, I figured out that Halbrand was Sauron pretty early on, or at least I strongly suspected it. But now knowing for sure and seeing everything that came out of season 1 and season 2, rewatching the entire show from the beginning will enrich, I think, the rewatch of season 1, because there's going to be so many things you see planted and like so many actions that have consequences later on that you didn't really notice at the time.
Right.
And themes that are probably established in the first season that are much more developed in the second season.
Yeah.
Well, plus you'll be able to see like just what they improved on in terms of making this show, because they definitely did a few things much better this season.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think a couple of episodes maybe were still holding on to some of the stuff that I didn't love about it, but I don't even know if I can quantify in words what that is yet.
I think they did two things worse, and none of them are deal breakers, but Arondir really had nothing to do this season.
Yeah. Because
they fridged his girlfriend.
I'll say this. I feel like they should have recast her. Yes.
Yeah.
But they didn't really use her as yes, he was motivated by revenge or whatever, but the fact that they used that so little kind of implies that they knew that they wanted to avoid that for the most part.
Maybe, but it also indicates that they kind of didn't really have a plan for what to do with him.
Yeah.
Without a romantic storyline. At least it feels that way to me. Like, because all he does basically this season is like walk around different places, and then he shows up at the end and
kill some orcs, and then he like has some. He's got a couple of really fucking awesome lines. I will say that.
Yeah,
yes, he does.
I think two of them in the same episode. One of them where he says, something about elves' memories do not dim. Which is notable because that actually sets up Celebrimbor later on.
Yeah.
And his fucking memories going, and then also whenever they fucking get swallowed by that fucking gross thing in the mud, and then he's like, there are many nameless things.
The dark.
I'll call this one supper.
The one thing that like sort of tied to that is I think he because they didn't know what to do with him, they tried to give him and Isildur one arc for a sizable portion of the season, and it never really worked for me. And Isildur's love triangle, nothing about that. We'll get to that when we get to that in the episode, but that might be the worst part of the season for me.
It's like they have a certain few characters that at least this season, maybe every season they'll have some of these. I don't know.
Yeah.
That they know that they need down the road, so they have to keep us somewhat aware of them for now.
Sure.
But they're not ready to do much with them, kind of thing.
Yeah, not every character can be in the spotlight all the time.
No.
Yeah. But I the other weak spot for me, and it's not a huge one, this season was the Harfoot storyline.
Once again,
because not much really happened there, and I think the payoff of figuring out that the guy who everyone already knew was Gandalf was actually Gandalf didn't really land for me.
No, honestly, you kind of had me set up for disappointment there, Bob.
I set myself up.
I was like, man, it's gonna be Saruman. That's cool, And I was trying to I was working out in my head as the show was going, I can see how that could be, perceived as this, and maybe it's still gonna be him. And then it's just like, I'm Gandalf. It's like, oh. cool,
Yeah.
man. Whatever. Like,
I mean,
already
I
knew
was
that.
I was on Team Saruman right up until I think the last episode, last week. I was kind of mostly on Team Sauron, but then I just consigned myself to the fact that this is a show about the Rings of Power, and Gandalf is one of the people who winds up with one of the Rings of Power.
Well,
so why would they put another wizard in the show?
When he got a staff, I paused it for a second. I was like, that looks like that's Gandalf's staff. But I actually paused and went and looked to see the designs of the staffs to be sure. Before he even said that I'm Gandalf or whatever. And they did the Grand Elf thing again.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, yeah, there's
That's
that
how
again.
we're doing it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that it was fine. It didn't really land for me. The big reveal didn't.
No.
I'm not sure it was supposed to be to land like a big reveal.
Yeah, were they expecting it to be something? How did they?
Yeah.
Did they really expect?
I'm glad
they had winning over people or snowing people with this or something. I don't know, man. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's. I'm glad they didn't go the route of Khan from.
Yeah.
He
They
looks
didn't
right
do
at
a Star
the
Trek Into Darkness on us, so that's good.
That's a plus. But I think the Gandalf Harfoot story just continues to be the lodestone of the show for me.
Yeah, because it doesn't intersect with the rest of the storylines in any way, at least so
Honestly,
far.
for me, I don't know how you guys felt, but that was one of the cooler parts of the first season for me. Was just like, I mean, it wasn't really much happening, but I just liked the mystery of it, even though it was kind of clear, seemingly what was going on. I was still like, oh,
it's one of the things where I like the characters. The story doesn't do it for me. I've never liked that story.
I felt that way until I thought about it a little bit more. I think the story in the first season is the story of Nori being a moral lighthouse for the rest of her tribe. Because when we first meet them, they're really ableist, basically. They'll leave you behind to die, and they talk nice.
Ableist.
Yeah, they say nice, pretty things about community and stuff, but their rules will leave you to die. And she resists that for the stranger. And by the end of it, the community is willing to sacrifice themselves to save him.
Right.
So it was an arc of moral progress in a cruel society.
And it is cool in the long term sense of like thinking that like, oh, Nori's not just some character. She's like literally helps create the culture that becomes what we know as hobbits. And like that's fucking awesome. But it's like that doesn't satisfy narratively in the moment of you're watching it, right?
No. Like
it's just something cool to think about later.
Yeah, like it's one of those things that again, it's like the characters I like, the sort of arc of where it's going to go. I find interesting, but the actual like beat for beat just is like I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
It's not bad, like it's not a deal breaker. I don't care.
I liked it overall. I felt that in the first season, the Harfoot story was like a nice, cozy fantasy break from all of the other stuff going on.
And there was still plenty of mystery, up until basically the last episode, whenever they had him say like 3 specifically Gandalf things in a row. There was still a little bit of mystery to it. But.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I do like the guy who's playing Gandalf a lot, and I like his portrayal a lot. The guy
he comes off as like a unsure of himself Gandalf.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a cool, I like seeing that take on it. Like he doesn't know everything, and he's still figuring out his place in the world.
Right.
And he's learning that he's fucking super powerful, and he terrifies him because he doesn't want to, and that's a great lesson for the character to be learning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, how did Gandalf come to be so fucking responsible, right? Like,
well, I love the importance of the staff, because like when we think like, why is the staff important? And it's not to make him more powerful, it's to give him control of his powers and kind of make him less powerful.
It's a channel, yeah.
Right.
A channel.
That like it's not like he wields cosmic power, but he chooses to use it precisely, and the staff is
legally distinct from the power cosmic, by the way.
Legally distinct, very much so. Because nobody uses that shit responsibly in Marvel.
Yeah. And the point of his story this season was that because they set up like he thought his choice was between friendship and power.
Mm-hmm.
And he learned instead that friendship is magic.
It
is
power.
that there's no choice to be made. That friendship, and this is like the theme of Tolkien in general, but like I think of the entire season, that light, where they say it a couple times, where only light can defeat darkness, strength cannot.
Right.
And that his story this season ties into that theme, because when he decides to choose his friends over power is when he actually gets his power, because that's what he's supposed to do. That's what he's here to do, is to spread light in the world.
Well, I think that it's also, and not just in his show, but like we look at the beginning of the season where the elves are, where like they have the rings of power, they have strength, but they don't know what to do with it, and it's kind of driving them crazy. Because they have all this power and they're kind of wielding it willy-nilly, but they're just like, something is wrong, we don't know what's going on. It's when they come together and they work together and they listen to people they were marginalizing, who weren't all in favor of using all of this power, that they're like, okay, well, we have to trust each other even if we disagree, to come together, because we know Sauron is out there and that is the problem, and we can't beat him with just the rings. We have to work together on that project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And another thing is, like, I remember, this really helps solidify the idea that yeah, you're right, that this is what Tolkien was all about. This was his antithesis to war and violence is friendship and fellowship. Mm-hmm. And like the Fellowship of the Rings movie, and even the books to a degree, like the books it's different because you spend enough time reading that you kind of do get a sense of, like, these characters spend enough time together they form bonds, right? But like one of the things about the first movie is it's kind of like by the time they become a fellowship, it's halfway through the movie.
Yeah. And
then like pretty quickly they're just like torn apart. And it's like, but then they spend the rest of the movies talking about the fellowship, and like the fellowship means something significant. And I remember, when I was younger, like they barely knew each other. They were barely together before they just started kind of getting picked apart. And I didn't really get what that was about. And like, it was, I think this solidifies that fellowship is a more powerful thing in Tolkien's mind than I think even I was ready to conceive of.
I think one of the things that's like the big difference to me in terms of like how the fellowship comes together in the books versus the movies is that all four of the hobbits are in on the plan to leave the Shire. Like, they don't all start knowing why, but they all find out over time. But even before they knew exactly what was going on, they were all planning to leave with Frodo and help him get out of the Shire. It wasn't that they just ran into Merry and Pippin on the way.
Yeah.
Merry and Pippin were involved in the plan and were helping him leave the whole time.
They weren't just a couple of dipshits sneaking outside the window.
No.
Right. And this highlights, to me, this always highlights that the changes Peter Jackson made for his movies are at least as big as the ones that Rings of Power is making. Yeah. Because like he didn't just change like events and stuff, but he fundamentally changed the personality and of almost every single character in the story. Like Aragorn was not a reluctant king.
No.
He was like super confident, gung-ho, let's go. Merry and Pippin weren't just a couple of dipshits.
No.
Frodo didn't abandon Sam. Eowyn was not a girl boss, she just wanted to die.
I kind of like the Aragorn change though. I feel like it's better.
I agree.
Just because you don't want to be, I don't know, be kind of a dick.
I'm the king. Get him away. An arc in the movies.
Yeah, the changes Peter Jackson made, all of them are creatively justifiable. All of them. And all of them made the movie stronger and basically created masterpieces of cinema. But the conceit we often hear in culture war arguments now is that Peter Jackson's movies honored the lore and the spirit of Tolkien, and Rings of Power doesn't. And that's just a bullshit argument.
No,
they both make huge changes to the lore and to the personalities of the characters on the page. Yeah. So Gimli wasn't comic relief in the books.
Nope.
Legolas had actual conversations with people.
Had a personality that wasn't just voguing.
Yeah.
Oh, he vogues so well.
He vogues so very well. He's a handsome man.
I will say that, not to be like ageist or whatever, but like, man, trying to get me to believe that that's a younger fucking Legolas in the Hobbit movies, I'm sorry.
I mean, we want to talk about changes to the lore. Why is Legolas in these movies? What the fuck are you doing here, boy?
Yeah.
Yes, you're alive, yes, you're around, but why are you here?
He's here because people want to see him in the movie. That's what the studio
because he wanted to do the world's dumbest love triangle.
Yeah. And I feel so bad. Like, I feel bad for Evangeline Lilly
Yeah.
Because I liked her character as a character.
I thought
she was great, but yeah.
She was written to be forced into this stupid fucking love triangle.
Yeah.
Right.
The love situation was like, and even their interactions are sweet. You know, her and the dwarf guy, like it's fine.
Right.
You know, it's just not unnecessary and like why.
Well, I would go so far as to say if like instead of Legolas, it was just her partner was generic elf guy, or even if Legolas served as generic elf guy and not like this culture scold.
And they didn't. I felt they didn't have the courage to really make that a tragic love story.
Yeah.
Which is what Tolkien would have done, because all of his stories about elves falling in love with non-elves and
it's tragedy.
Huge tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Even ours.
So anyway, we're not talking about the Hobbit movies.
Right. No, archery practice.
Okay. So you're talking about the scene with Celebrimbor and Anatar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was a lot of feels right there.
So Anatar is trying to play it like Sauron's a fucker. And so he's like, you're making me do this to you. And he's giving him this really calm speech. But he has Celebrimbor pinned to a wall with arrows. And he is just standing there doing archery practice.
And also like leaning down and like grabbing one of them and just like slightly moving it as it's sticking into him, you know, to fucking ugh.
Yep.
And still
I do want to say like
gaslight him.
And still trying to gaslight him too.
Or is he gaslighting himself? That's what I want to talk about, because
both of those things.
Like these two actors, by the way, also fucking excellent performances this whole season, but this final episode in particular is like, holy shit.
If they don't get Emmy nominations, I will riot.
Yeah, I'll help you.
Like, but Anatar, being Sauron, he really does seem to be trying to convince himself that he's doing something good. And he's not just like, because like he doesn't have any reason to be saying some of the stuff to just Celebrimbor that he's saying. Like he could say whatever the fuck he wants, and it doesn't matter. He knows he's gonna kill him. He knows what he's gonna say. He's not gonna leave that room, and yet he's still making justifications. You know, and trying to. It's like maybe is he trying to get Celebrimbor to, before he dies, say, "You're right, man." You know, like.
Well, also,
he's got a pretty good plan there.
I mean, part of it could be that neither of them know where the 9 are.
True.
Like,
yeah.
And that's what Sauron wants, right? So, like, part of it is that, like, I think, you know, he probably does want the respect of Celebrimbor, but also, like, Celebrimbor at this point is very clearly, 1, not going to forgive you, and 2, die.
Yeah, he absolutely wants the respect. That's why, I mean, that's what I read into the tear that he sheds when he kills Celebrimbor. Because fundamentally,
they had real bonding, you know what I mean? Like they had. That's the thing about it is he may be evil Sauron, but like he does have some mortality. Like he's got something that makes him still partly I don't know, some being that can feel shit, basically.
Well, I think what it is that he's. I mean, I think Celebrimbor calls himself the episode before is that he's such a good liar he can lie to himself, and I think to play these roles of Halbrand and Anatar, he has had to lie to himself to do that, and, for lack of a better term, method act.
The reason that's so good is because it speaks to how real fucking liars are and real narcissists are. They don't just say shit and thinking that they're lying all the time. They make themselves believe what they're saying too. And
the thing that sticks with me is that every Tolkien villain is fundamentally pathetic. They're not like supremely confident or powerful, you know, in their power or anything. All of them are pitiable creatures, and Sauron is no different. So he does want Celebrimbor's respect because he, at his core, is a big baby.
Right. Because no one has ever respected him.
Right. And he is, I think he is, you can't say he is lying to himself, that he's convinced himself that he wants to save Middle-earth and so forth. And Celebrimbor calls him out on it, and so Sauron is crying. Like, because this is the moment where he decides, he understands that he is evil now. And he's damned. And there's no going back. And he hates himself for it. So that's what I took from it.
Because Celebrimbor gives him his breaking speech.
Yeah.
And he loses his temper and fucking spears him. He runs him through the glaive.
Right. And I'm wondering if we're going to see the Celebrim banner in season 3.
The what?
You don't know what the Celebrim banner is? So after he kills Celebrimbor, Sauron raises his body on a pole and uses it as a banner as he marches on the Grey Havens. So I'm wondering if we'll see so Charles Edwards is leaving the show. His character will not be back, but I'm wondering if they're going to make a prosthetic or a dummy of him, of his emaciated, rotting body,
Sure,
or something like that we'll see in season 3 as Sauron sets out to conquer the rest of Eriador and the rest of the elves.
And then this is cool too. A little stuff. I mean, I'm gonna watch this one again for sure. But one of the first things he says is not resenting losing his own life or anything. He's it's a tragedy that he silenced these what is it, birds or something.
Yeah.
That he talks about on the noontide. And he's it's sucks that you can't hear those now because of you, man. It's
right. Miss my birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fishes.
Kingfishers are birds, yeah.
And this is another moment of moral victory in the show. And this is an example of the theme of strength cannot beat darkness, only light can. Celebrimbor wins here.
Right.
He wins a couple times. He gets a couple of fucking just destructive moral blows on the Minotaur.
Yeah.
Especially the last one. How do we feel? Because I know that there was earlier in the season, there was a name drop, a title drop, that you weren't a fan of, right, Bob?
I was not, and I cringed here too.
Did you?
I cringed less because they'd already made me cringe once, and so now I'm prepared for it.
This one, if anybody's going to be called that, this was the moment to do it. The guy to say it would be Celebrimbor, and it would be this.
So the reason
is the title. The title, the Lord of the Rings, is Sauron. That is who the Lord of the Rings is, and he is called. I believe one of his actual titles in the lore is the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. The reason I'm more okay with it here is because it creates the symmetry where Anatar says Celebrimbor is going to be the Lord of the Rings, and Celebrimbor throws it back at him like it's a curse.
Yeah. And he literally says that they're your prison.
Right.
And that actually is kind of what, because he puts all of his power into the One Ring, right?
Yeah.
Or most of it. Man, he's so good. When he gets this face here, it's oh, I'm so sad. What's happening right now is so bad and tragic.
Yeah.
It sucks, man. Why
his micro expressions are great.
Why did you do this?
What's funny?
And this is where you see him, how pathetic and lonely and self-hateful he really is.
Sad boy
all
Sauron.
Tolkien villains.
It's in his mind, he needs all of this to pay off and everybody to tell him how great he is, so that he doesn't have to think about the shittiness that he's done. That's never going to happen. So of course he's going to get twisted up and more fucking evil.
Sauron's the core of his flaws is that he keeps doubling down on his wrongs, thinking that eventually he'll find a right.
Yeah. This is why he's so desperate for Galadriel's approval as well.
Yeah.
Because he hates himself and he just desperately wants to be loved and respected, and knows that he's never going to get that.
Later on in the episode. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, ultimately, he is pitiable, like Gollum.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Saruman, like Denethor.